Hey guys, welcome back. In our last video, we talked a little bit about usability and why usability is important. And also remember, usability is all about the user. Every decision that we make is based on the user base and target audience that we're trying to reach, right? So in this case, what we're going to talk about is a little bit about borrowed conventions. According to Jacob Nielsen, who also founded the Nielsen Group, which again is a UI UX, it has a lot of design and information for people like you and I. You should definitely go check it out. But according to Jacob's law of design, is that other users have gone to other websites multiple times, just like you, right? This is not a new thing for you, hopefully, right? And you have visited other websites, and because they have done that, and because they see the patterns in all the other websites, they expect your website to behave very similarly to the way that they have experienced all these other websites as well. So what that means is that if you decide to make a change on how your website works, how it behaves in comparison to the rest of websites that exist out there, then you might be creating a harder time for your users to be able to navigate and consume content on your site, because they will have to learn a new model of thinking and interacting with your site. Now, in this video, where we're going to focus we're going to focus on borrowed conventions. Now, in the beginning of HTML and CSS, in the very beginning of the internet, we borrow a lot of conventions from the newspapers. If you think about a newspaper, when it's folded in half, it almost looks like a browser. And when you think about it, the top part of that newspaper, which is called above the fold in journalism, is the most important news. Hopefully your site and your designs focus on what's most important in the top, less relevant towards the bottom. Just like we talked about in our last video, think about an inverted pyramid when it comes down to laying down your content. In our case, we're borrowing information from newspapers. As we borrow these elements from newspapers, we can see different standards that are very similar to each other. Think about this. If you look at a newspaper, on the very top of the newspaper, again above the fold, you would have the name of the newspaper. You would have maybe the date and maybe something about the weather. It would also give you information about where to find certain information throughout the newspaper. So if you're looking for sports, the last score or the last game that the Cowboys played, go to page 6 on sports. If you want to know about finances, go to page 2 in this section of the newspaper. If you want to continue reading the main article, go to page 3. Again, think about it as links, right, that you can see on the top of your site. Alongside with that, on the newspaper, you also have a big image to kind of try to attract your attention and have like a big heading as well, so that it can catch the attention of the person that is passing just by and catches a glimpse of the newspaper. Same way here, when we design our sites, depending on what our goals and objectives are, then we need to be able to create something that helps captivate the attention of our users. And it helps them understand what their purpose is as they're visiting the site, as well as help them grab their attention so they can spend more time on your site. If you think about it, the more time that you spend in a site, the more likely you're either to give them their business, believe in their reputation, or invest money in whatever they're trying to promote. The more time that they spend in there, the more that you can shape and mold the ideas that they have based on whatever they're trying to promote. So when you think about our website and compare it to the newspaper, you also see that we borrow a lot of other things, as far as, for example, our heading 1, 2, 3, our paragraphs, our list items. All of these things that we use as designers are things that have been in place in newspapers and magazines in the past. Now, if you think about, for example, the main content area of the newspaper, you usually have multiple areas broken down in a specific grid to be able to digest the content a little bit easier. It also has what's more important is usually bigger, what's less important is a little bit smaller. In the past, we used to have a lot more websites that would have a main content area, and then they will have a very small sidebar next to it with maybe relevant links, but it wasn't the most important thing. Now, we don't necessarily use that as often nowadays, but it's something to consider. If your site does have that type of information, then it's something you can also borrow and think. Newspapers have done it for years and it has worked. We can also implement it here on our website as well. So think about how grids and layouts, headings, paragraphs, list items, images, all of these things play together to captivate and get the attention of our users. Again, our content area should have something very similar. The more websites that you visit, the more research you do on your competitors, the easier it is for you to see, okay, they are doing this. If you have, for example, a leading person in your competitor list, then you can also see that some of the things that they're doing, they might be doing right based on their research. You can also do your own research and take advantage of being able to create these different types of layouts. Later on in a future video, we're going to talk about maybe UX research and what are some of the models and things that we can look at to start to understand our users. Right now, we're just talking about borrow conventions and how we're taking things from other sites, from other mediums, and applying them into our site. The other thing that we also borrow from newspapers is also the footer. The footer of the newspaper also has other relevant links that can help you find information on the newspaper, but is not quite as prominent or as important as the one on the top navigation or top header. When you think about when you think about the footer of your site, then usually that's when you find maybe some of the same links that you find in the navigation, but you might find extra links to maybe signing up to a newsletter, maybe going to the terms and conditions, privacy policy, all of these things that can help your site, help your users navigate and understand what are the legal implications of using your application as well. Giving information as far as maybe what the copyrights or reserve rights are on your site, the year when all this has happened, different things such as that. Maybe some sites even include the description of what the site is all about. If it's a new website, or maybe if it's a portfolio website, you can kind of give a brief understanding and explanation of what the website is about, who you are, and why they should care about finding you. Now, as we talk about borrow conventions, one of the things that we see from site to site to site is that usually the footer of the site will have information such as contact information, like phone number, email address, maybe a physical address if you have a physical store or location. All of these things are there to help you understand and be able to contact people within the business. Now, most of us, as we have navigated through most sites, we know that if I want to find the phone number for my dentist, I can always scroll towards the bottom of the site and I should be able to find the phone number there. Same thing for email. You have to consider, does your site need to have that type of information on the footer of your site? And how do you make it easily accessible for users to get that information and understand and navigate with ease through your website? As we're understanding all these conventions, we have to see what is our lowest common denominator. What glues all of our users together? What are their experiences and knowledge based on using applications such as ours? And how do we engage with them in a manner that creates a relationship and creates communication between your site and your target audience? Some of these things that we've been talking about today, between the header, main content area, and footer of your site, all of these things are there to help understand and create a baseline for what you can create for your users. How to initiate that first "hello, how are you? My name is." How do you create that first initial impression of your site? Now, remember, all of these things that we've talked about, they are all models of design. However, you need to know who your audience is, and you need to make the decision based on who your audience is to either change, adapt, keep, or altogether remove one of these conventions, one of these things. How does it work for your audience? How do you keep your audience engaged? And that's the challenge as UI UX designers for us to focus on who our target audience is, what our goals are, what our objectives are, and how do we make that bridge and connection between our application and our users. Don't forget about these borrow conventions. Look up Jacob's Law of Design, and again, keep on creating. See you soon. Bye.